Alrighty, welcome back to part 3 of fluid balance and edema. Since we're talking about sodium and water retention, let's look at a specific pathology that relates here. Diabetes insipidus is not the kind of diabetes that you're familiar with. Let's get that straight right off. The only thing it has in common with diabetes mellitus is that there's excessive urination. Actually, that's useful information because students frequently confuse DI with another pathology that we'll look at next, SIADH. If you remember that the diabetes one causes excessive urination, then the other one is the other one. Save yourself a brain cell. One's one, the other's the other. Because they're pretty much opposites. Diabetes insipidus is when there is a lack of ADH. Do you remember what ADH does? It retains water. So if there's less ADH, there is less water being retained, so more is urinated out. Of course, this will make the patient very dehydrated, and we can test that by finding a lot of stuff left in the blood in relation to the amount of water present in the blood. So we call it a state of increased osmolarity in the blood. If you prefer, we could also say that the blood is concentrated. The opposite is true of the urine, isn't it? If you look at the causes of diabetes insipidus, you can see that the problem with ADH not doing its job can come from either the source of ADH, the pituitary gland, the location where ADH works, the kidneys, or because it just shut down because there's already way too much water in the system. Once again, do these signs and symptoms make sense? If there's less water in our bodies, will we be thirsty? Not enough ADH would do what to our urine? Here's another question. What would the serum osmolarity be like if a patient has a pituitary adenoma causing ADH to be suppressed? Now let's look at the opposite of DI. It's called the syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. In this case, there's too much ADH being secreted. As we might expect, it kind of acts like we have water intoxication because there's way too much water in our blood with SIADH. One odd fact about SIADH is one of the ways it's caused. The ADH secreting tumor is so odd because, as you already know, ADH has nothing to do with the lungs, but bronchogenic lung cancer will actually produce ADH. Let's work through the signs and symptoms of SIADH. Too much ADH equals too much water in our body. If we have too much water in our body, we would expect to have a low serum osmolarity, right? Diluted blood. It's not necessarily that we have less stuff in our blood, but if we're measuring the percentages of water versus stuff, then it'll appear as if all the electrolytes are low in our blood. So we get hyponatremia, for example, because of the dilutional effect. Now, if we have too much total body water, we should see a lot of dilute urine, right? But instead, we actually see more concentrated urine. What? What happens is that the increase in total body water raises our blood pressure. The kidneys' JG cells, juxtaglomerular cells, sensing the rise in blood pressure will suppress renin. If you remember back to the earlier diagram, low renin will also lower aldosterone, and low aldosterone will not retain sodium. Because of that, the urine will be more concentrated as sodium is excreted. The end result is that ADH retains a bunch of water in the kidneys, but sodium does not follow it. Now let's think back to the hyponatremia side. Since we need sodium to produce action potentials, does it make sense that less sodium in our blood would lead to things like muscle weakness and being tired, lethargic? We also need sodium for the action potential in nerves too, don't we? Can you see where that confusion might come in? Let's break that right here, and we'll talk about potassium next.